Welcome to our picks for week 11 in the Canadian Football League. I'm John Hodge, and I'm joined today by special guest Andrew McInnis. Andrew, how's it going?
John, thank you for having me here on the show today. Great to be here with you. And I have to say, I did hear you were in my neck of the woods recently. Seemed like you enjoyed your time. You were in the far East Coast. So I hope you enjoyed your visit.
Oh, it was awesome. My wife and I were out in Newfoundland for a week. It was fantastic. It was my first time on the Rock. I know you're in Halifax, Andrew. I was in Halifax for Touchdown Atlantic in 2023. And I also loved Halifax. Honestly, Halifax and St. John's might be two of my top three Canadian cities to visit. They're that high on my list, and I can appreciate why someone yourself would enjoy living out there.
It's growing. It's growing fast, getting bigger, but it's still the same place that I grew up in. So enjoying it, and it's a great place in the summer. So happy you were here. We just need a CFL team. It's the last missing piece of the puzzle here, John.
Agreed. And I think I speak for all Canadian football fans, players, personnel people, coaches, and media when I say I'm also hoping that we get a team out in Halifax. This league needs to grow. But before we get into expansion, we should probably make some picks here, Andrew. So let's get right into it. The BC Lions will visit the Calgary Stampeders on Thursday night, where the red and white are 5.5-point home favorites. The Lions have made a change at running back with Xander Horvath starting over James Butler, while Joe will make his Stampeders debut after serving his 6-game suspension. The weather conditions will be a factor in this game as the forecast calls for 12 degrees and heavy rain in Calgary. Andrew, can the Lions overcome the wet conditions, or will the Stampeders ride on through?
You know what people say, bad weather is great for underdogs. Unders are great for underdogs as well. I am taking the dog in this one. Look, there was quite a bit of an overreaction last week, I thought, when Nathan Rourke was announced back. I mean, look, I get it. We know what he's capable of. We know who he is. But there was a huge spike in the number. And then on game day, it ticked up even more points. And I think that was a bit of an overreaction. Now in 1 week, we are seeing them go from at the closing number, 9.5-point favorites, to now getting 5.5 points. From a betting standpoint, this is value now. I think it was an overreaction last week, and now we're almost seeing an overreaction to what happened to them by not covering that number. So this is a great spot for BC. Calgary's been a team that has had success in the favorite role, but I also really like them more so at a pick'em or a closer number. Laying it is not something I'm comfortable with them. We know they can score points, but Hodge, they give up just as many as they score sometimes. And if we have some iffy weather, I want my money on the underdog. So what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm with you, Andrew. And I was all aboard the Stampeders hype train a week ago until they picked off Chad Kelly 4 times and still lost. Like, that was an unbelievable game. And I know they were on a short week. Dave Dickinson talked about them losing steam late in that game. They fortunately have now had enough time to rest up, and hopefully for their sake, they've recharged their batteries. But look, this is going to be a nasty old school football game. And the BC Lions have not only the number one rushing attack in the Canadian Football League, they have the number one rushing defense in the Canadian Football League. And I know there's Stampeders fans out there going, but what about Dedrick Mills? We can run the ball too. Yes, the Stampeders have the number 2 running game in the Canadian Football League, but they have the number 7 rush defense. And so I think Nathan Rourke is going to shake off some of that rust, do enough through the air. Vernon Adams Jr. is going to be, hopefully for his sake, looking to have a bounce back, because that was a really ugly performance in Toronto. But on the ground, I like the Lions to run the ball better. Xander Horvath was an absolute beast 2 weeks ago against the Blue Bombers, and I think him and James Butler are a heck of a 1-2 punch. Yes, Dedrick Mills is good. Yes, I like the Stampeders offensive line, but I like this Lions rushing game just a little bit more. And defensively, I like the Lions a lot more now. So I will take the BC Lions to win. And the fact that I'm getting 5.5 points against the spread makes me gleeful.
Wanted to mention this as well, John. I've heard from, sportsbook directors, people setting these odds, that in football, 5.5 is kind of a number that tells us that they don't know what they think. They want the market to push it in whichever direction that we decide. So if money comes in on the favorite, it gets lower. The dog, it'll get higher in certain directions. And for me, that tells us all we have to know about this one. With Rourke playing his second game since back injury, you talked about the Calgary hype train and also VA coming off that tough outing. Can he bounce back? So I love hearing things like the bookmakers don't know what they're doing because you and I can capitalize on it. So 5.5 opening number, not much of a football number.
It is wild. And I assume when you say they wanted to push it, you're talking to up to a touchdown or down to a field goal. 5.5 is kind of no man's land.
100%. And hopefully you and I are on the right page and the right number here when it comes to this dog. Getting Rourke as a dog? That sounds pretty good to me here. Let's take a look at the Ottawa Red Blacks, who will visit the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on Friday night, where the blue and gold are 6.5-point home favorites. Ottawa has totally shaken up its defense this week, moving defensive lineman Bryce Carter and Michael Wakefield to the 6-game injured list and releasing starting defensive backs Amari Henderson and Mario Houston. Winnipeg is trending in the other direction as it appears Zach Collaros and Jarrell Bronxton will return to the starting lineup from injured reserve. Can the Red Blacks get their first win of the season, or will Winnipeg get back to playing in the winning way?
It's got to be the Blue Bombers this week, right? It's just got to. This loss that they had, I mean, they're coming off bye, which should help. But 2 weeks ago, that loss to the BC Lions is one of the worst I've ever seen. Rookie quarterback coming into your building, almost sold out crowd, and you can't get it done. And not only that, you fold at the end of the game. It becomes a 16-point loss, humiliating. This team is 4-4. 4-4 is not a bad record. It's not a good record. It's just mediocre. And it feels like this season is kind of at a turning point. Like the Bombers have a really challenging schedule in the second half. They've got Saskatchewan twice, Edmonton twice, Montreal twice over their last 9 games. If they are going to make the playoffs, they need to make hay while they can. And this is the best opportunity, I think, any team has had this year to make hay. You've got a beaten up and bruised Red Blacks team that's going to have at least 4 changes on defense. They are coming into your building with injuries along the offensive line, guys who are banged up. And of course, Jake Maier, you know, he's played respectably at times. He's also struggled at times. So, and that's, I mean, they're an 0-8 football team, right? I mean, heads have already started to roll in the coaching staff with the dismissal of William Fields, their defensive coordinator. They've now gone into the secondary with a chainsaw and hacked away at some of the veterans there. Like, this is a team that, yes, is desperate, but with the home field advantage the Bombers have, the rest advantage that they have, Zach Collaros likely coming back for this one, I think they should win this game. And honestly, it should not be a close game. If this is a close game, I think fans in Winnipeg will feel disappointed, even with a win. This should be a statement game for the Blue Bombers to show that they are not over the hill. They are not the team that got embarrassed by a rookie quarterback 2 weeks ago, and they've still got it. So give me the Bombers. The fact that it's under a touchdown spread, for me, I'm on it.
We were talking about the books and, you know, where they think a line should be or what the opening number should be. I think they're having trouble getting red-black money. Let's be honest. Like, this team has done nothing to make anybody want to go on them. And hand up, I had them last week. And John, for the same reason I was on last week, if I'm going to take them at relatively the similar number against a better team, I got to take them again this week. I have to do it. This Red Blacks team. Look, everything you just said, I can't argue with as far as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The spot, off a bye, healthy quarterback, making changes, home field. But the only thing that I find tough is that this team wasn't playing that great with Collaros in the first place. They haven't been that great at home as it is in the first place. And even when they've looked good, have they looked good enough to beat anybody by, you know, more than a touchdown? And the thing is, they are playing the Ottawa Red Blacks. And listening to your guys' podcast this week on the 3 Down Network, it's like, how many games is this team going to win? Is Ottawa going to win a game this season? But Jake Maier, I think he's actually been serviceable. I just think the unfortunate part is when he makes a mistake, it comes at the worst time possible. Like he has a great game, and then end of third quarter, you need to march the field, and that's when the pick comes. But if I'm going to take them at a pretty good number as a dog last week, you're supposed to take them again at the same number this week. So I don't know if I'll be watching it, but I'm taking the dog one more time. Got to prove it to me if you're Winnipeg.
Hey, I respect the commitment. And look, the Red Blacks, I'm on record as saying I think they're going to win at least 3 games. So it's not like I think 0-18 is on the table, 1-17, etc. I think this team is going to win some games. And look, if Caden Salter could go into Princess Auto Stadium and come out with a double-digit win, certainly Jake Mayer can go into Winnipeg and at least cover this spread. So I am not confident with this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team, but the way that their season is almost hanging in the balance a little bit. The pressure's off a bit with the way that the Calgary Stampeders looked last week, but the BC Lions are also starting to push from that bottom spot in the West Division. So the Bombers do have competition coming up from underneath. This to me is a must win for them. So we'll have to wait and see if they live up to that.
I gotta ask you, what's your number on Brady Oliveira touches this game? I mean, he complained about it. We've all talked about it. Are they going to give him some carries? Are they going to feed the guy?
So he got a ton of touches against the BC Lions, and I asked him at practice on Sunday if that was part of the game plan or if that was just how the game went, and he insisted it was the same answer as I always get, which is no, that we just game by game, we just roll with what we think is working, and we'll do whatever we need to win. Their stock answer is kind of, we don't care how it looks that week, we just want to win, whether that means throwing the ball 50 times, running the ball 50 times, whatever. I do think there has been frustration from Brady at times in recent years when they've gone away from him. I'll say this. I think that if you are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this game, I don't think you want to give Brady 35 touches, but I also think you need him to have more than 12, right? I think you want to establish him early and then feast off play action for a bunch of the rest of the game until the fourth quarter when you can then go back to him, right, and kill the clock. I think that if you're Winnipeg would be the perfect recipe, but again, they insist that there is no recipe and they don't care about the recipe. As long as they win, they don't care. So that's the way I see it, but that's the way that they are on the record, at least, explaining it.
We know what he's capable of. That's for sure. We know what he's capable of, and I think he deserves all the touches.
Well, and hey, quietly, like no one's talking about Brady Oliveira as most outstanding Canadian, rightfully so with what Tyson Philpott's done in Montreal. But it should be noted, Brady is averaging the same number of yards per carry and is actually on pace for the same number of yards as he had in 2024 when he was the MOP of the whole league. So this is not a guy who's slowing down. There are areas of this Blue Bombers team that have slowed down over the last couple of years. Brady Oliveira, not one of them. The Toronto Argonauts will visit the Edmonton Elks on Saturday afternoon, where the green and gold are 3.5-point home favorites. The Argonauts overcame 4 interceptions from Chad Kelly to beat the Stampeders last week, thanks in part to a brilliant third down stuff from safety Bubba Bolden. The Elks are riding a 2-game losing streak, their first skid of the season, and have spent the past week licking their wounds after a 48-30 loss to the Montreal Alouettes. Kenneth Logan, the team's standout strong side linebacker, appears unlikely to play due to a knee injury. Can the Boatmen string together a third straight win, or can the Elks end their losing skid?
John, the last time this Elks team would have covered this spread against anybody would have been a handful of weeks ago against the Ottawa Red Blacks team we just spoke about, which, let's be honest, so far this season, that's not saying a lot. So when you look at this Elks team, they are great. They do have a high-flying offense. I'm starting to see their defense return to what we once thought it could be. And, that could be a lot to deal with against an Argos team, which you talked about it a couple times now. Chad Kelly throwing a handful of interceptions and still puts up those numbers, still leads his team to success. And the quote I've been seeing from you guys throughout the week and on 3 Down Nation, he doesn't want to be a check down Charlie. He doesn't want to be someone that takes it easy, and he's not going to slow down. If he gets picked off once, he's going to keep slinging it. I, for one, think the Argos are the most underappreciated, under-talked about team in this league. I think that maybe it has to do with, I guess how the team performs on both ends of the ball. It could be, that Chad Kelly hasn't been the most likable guy in the league, whatever it might be. I think that they're capable of hanging around, if not outright winning against this Elks team here. I think you look at the Elks and they started off pretty good. And then we started to realize, is it time to sell high? And I believe that sell high might still be existing right now because the Argos, they are to me a lot higher in my rankings than they are for many others. I would also argue if you're going to take the Argos in this game, you might want to sprinkle a little bit of Grey Cup money on the Argos this week because look at the East, John. It's not a great, it's not looking great. So someone's going to have to play in that East final. And if you have a plus 800 or higher ticket going into that East final, you're feeling pretty good about Toronto.
Well, and it should be noted that the last time a team ran away with the East Division, it was 2024, and it was the Montreal Alouettes who did it. And the team that won the East Final was Toronto. And the year before that, when the Argonauts ran away with the division at 16-2, the Alouettes won the East Final. So evidently being the number one seed in the East Final might be a curse. And the Ticats lost as the number one seed in 2025. It's been a long time since the number one seed in the East made it to the Grey Cup. For me, I appreciate what you're saying, Andrew. I agree that the Toronto Argonauts are a little bit of an unsung team. Obviously, they don't get all the media attention in the world. They don't have the most fervent fan base. They do have a very passionate fan base. Let's not make any mistakes, but it is a smaller group than some teams. I love the way that this team plays offensively. Yes, there have been some picks from Chad Kelly, but I love the way that he pushes the ball down the field. DeMonte Coxey, Mackay Polk having brilliant seasons. Kevin Mattel's cooled off a little bit, but he's still a great player. And Tyler Common, one of the breakout players of this season, one of our runners-up for most outstanding rookie at the midway point of this season. To me, the concerns with this club are just on the defensive side. They have improved at times this year. I do think they've taken some steps, but I'm not loving the pass rush up front. That's been a concern for me all season. And I think some of their pieces in the secondary have slowed down a little bit. This team still gave up 30 points to the Calgary Stampeders last week, despite Vernon Adams Jr. having his worst game of the season. That to me is a red flag. And I think the Edmonton Elks, yes, we're bound to level off at some point, but let's also not get it twisted. This team lost to the Saskatchewan Roughriders by 2 points. And then, yeah, they got their bell rung by the Montreal Alouettes. But the Alouettes are in a tier unto themselves right now. They are by far and away, in my opinion, the number one team in the league. The tier two teams are Edmonton and Saskatchewan. And everybody else is another full tier below them, including the Toronto Argonauts. So if I get the chance to pick a hungry, pissed off Edmonton Elks team at -3.5, I'm doing it. I think a couple weeks ago, this line would have been -7, -8. So the fact that I only have to eat a little more than a field goal, I'm fine with it. I am a believer in the Elks. I love their offensive line. This seems like a great game, by the way, for Justin Rankin to get going again. He looked like the runaway MOP after 4 weeks. He's now been slowed down a little bit. And so I would love to see him get 25 touches in this game and go for 100 as he looks to become the first player in CFL history to have 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. So we're on opposite sides of this one again, Andrew. Give me the Edmonton Elks.
I just miss the days where Edmonton were an underdog. Now being a favorite, it's just a little bit different with this Elks team. All right, the Saskatchewan Roughriders will visit the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Saturday night, where the Tabbies are 5.5-point home underdogs. The Riders are coming off an impressive win over the Ottawa Red Blacks that came out without offensive stars Samuel Emilis, Keon Schaefer-Baker, and AJ Ouellette, none of whom are expected to return this week. On the flip side, the Hamilton Tiger Cats seem to have found their quarterback as Harrison Frost threw for 237 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Last week's loss to the BC Lions and garnered a vote of confidence from head coach Scott Milanovich. Will Saskatchewan win a third straight game and cover this wide spread, or can the Tabbies get it done at home?
This is the only home dog of the week, and it's barking for me, Andrew. I'm taking the Tiger Cats to cover this spread. I did not take, I picked the Red Blacks to cover last week. I got burned. I did not pick the Tiger Cats to cover in BC, and I got burned. So I am taking the Tabbies to cover. I do think the Riders are going to win this game. I think the game I anticipated last week in Regina was like a scrappy, ugly win, a close win for the Riders against the Red Blacks. And I mean, look, if Shadwell Nakuba gets that pick six near the goal line, that might have been the way the game turned out. Instead, a very tight first half became a Rider blowout in the second half. with the injuries this team has, it's impressive that they're 6-2. They're riding a winning streak. Full credit to the Riders. I still think they win this game, but I liked what I saw from Harrison Frost. I expect him to be better in game 2 than he was in game 1. I also think he's going to get a little more run support here. The Lions really shut down Larry Roundtree last week, and they have the number 1 rush defense in the CFL. Saskatchewan's is still strong, but it's not BC's. It's number 3 in the league. So I think that with a little more run support and playing at home, I think we're going to see better things from the Tabbies, but I still think the Riders win this game. To me, this is a walk-off field goal type of game, a last team with the ball type of game. I think this is going to be a nail biter. So I will take the Riders to win, but I will take the Tabbies to cover this 5.5 point spread.
As of late, it's been tough to fade teams that are laying big numbers. I love betting underdogs, as we found out on this podcast here today. It's been tough to fade these teams that are laying a huge number. But when you look at the season as we move forward, I think there's going to be spots where we can make money with dogs like Hamilton. You mentioned home dog here this week. I feel like this is a spot to do it. I also think this number could get a little bit bigger, but I wanted to bring to the attention of something I found, which is kind of interesting with the number being at 7 in the hook here, Hodge, but the first half number is 5.5. And that's kind of a go spot where people get scared off and they're like, okay, I'll play the full game. But really what that tells me is the books are more confident in Sask getting the job done early and Hamilton actually having a backdoor cover. And so when I look at it, I think they're going to find their game. To your point, couldn't agree more. I wanted to mention that as well. BC's run defense has been fantastic. I think if you can establish the run, if you're Hamilton, it will help Frost out even more. And one thing I like about him is he has the deep ball threat, but his decision-making is pretty sharp. He doesn't sit in the pocket for too long. He's made good decisions. And I'm going to say something I said earlier in the show. If I was going to take the number last week against Sask with Ottawa, I sure as hell better take it this week with Hamilton at home. So I'm on a lot of dogs this week, and I think this is one that can most certainly keep it close. And I wanted to ask you something because I was speaking about this with someone earlier this week. From a betting perspective and a CFL perspective, with a quarterback like Trevor Harris, I'm not saying he doesn't have the deep ball, but we were talking pre-show about how sometimes he can have some long drives, extended drives.
Mm-hmm.
Is that good for us with an underdog as a big spread, or is it bad for us? Because sometimes killing that much clock can be good for an underdog, but if he kills a bunch of clock and then scores, it can be tough for us as well. What are your thoughts on that for a guy that knows how to kill the clock and then score?
It's a great point. And look, where this game ultimately went off the rails for the Red Blacks last week was Tommy Stevens coming in as the closer, right? And really killing that clock late. I think if you're the Tiger Cats, if you can somehow scrap your way to a fourth quarter lead, then that potentially limits the Riders' willingness to put Trevor Harris on the bench or throw him out at wide out where everyone knows he's never going to catch a pass. And have Tommy Stevens run quarterback power and read option time and time again. So I'm a big Trevor Harris fan. I always have been. I like the way that he can make ultra quick decisions with the football. He takes such pressure off of his offensive line that way. And it's part of the reason he's played so long. He's taken fewer hits on average than just about any quarterback in professional football. And if you take fewer hits, you're going to play well into your late 30s and early 40s, just as he has. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. If you've got possession of the ball for 40 minutes a game, it makes it awfully tough for other teams to win or even cover. So I do think the Ticats have played well on defense, generally speaking, over the past month or so. They're not getting as many takeaways as they did last year, but they did win the turnover battle head-to-head against BC. So if they can find a way to get a pick, get a fumble recovery in this one, that's what Scott Milanovich talked about in his press conference this week. If they can win the turnover battle, he believes that Harrison Frost can get it done under center as a first-time starter, or going into his second career start. So we'll have to wait and see how that time of possession battle works out, because it is super impactful for the line. Absolutely.
And I've been overly critical of some coaches and their decisions. Scott Milanovich might be my favorite coach right now about decision making. going for it, whether when he kicks, when he decides to keep the offense out there. I like him as far as that's concerned. And if you and I are taking the dog, we want a guy making the right decisions.
Absolutely. So for Andrew McInnis, I'm John Hodge. We thank you as always for checking out our picks at 3 Down Nation, straight up and against the spread. We'll be back, Justin Dunk, JC Abbott, and myself for our full podcast on Monday. We'll see you then.